Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief podcast, as well as the Chris DeSantis YouTube channel. I wanted to take a minute today to talk about one of the most exciting people in swimming right now. Earlier this week, we did a YouTube video, myself and my podcast mates, Joel and Eric, talking about the 100 freestyle world record of David Popovici. And I wanted to actually go back and do some analysis as well from what I can draw upon as to the psychology of Popovich. And, part of where I come at this from, people who've listened for a long time know that I'm a student of positive psychology. I was a graduate in 2009 of the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology program at the University of Pennsylvania. At that time, it was the only such program in the United States, and I was the first athletic coach to get that education. So I've been a pioneer myself in the field of positive psychology and sport. And I was listening to this interview that Brett Hawke did with David Popovici a month ago after he won a world championship in the 100 and 200 free. And I just wanted to highlight some of the language that Popovich is using to talk about his own swimming and some of the insight he gives us to his own internal dialogue, because I think there's a lot to learn for anybody that is engaging in the sport of swimming or sport in general, or trying to do anything in life, to be honest, because there's a lot of really good stuff here. And before we get into it, I just want to couch this and say, I think, we're talking about, I want to give this a certain level of sensitivity. We're talking about a 17-year-old. Um, and so, I think that a lot of the things that he says in here, I have no idea how much insight he has into how he got there in terms of thought process. And that'll actually be really important for him going forward in his swimming career, that he understands some of these processes and how they work, because a lot of what he's saying here will be challenged over the course of his career, particularly at whatever point he reaches, which may not be for a while, um, where somebody's up and coming and challenging him. That's when I think a lot of uh, some some people's natural positivity, when they're just like a rocket ship in whatever they're doing, really gets challenged. That said, there's some really wonderful statements that he makes in here that I want to highlight. So let's get into the interview. And thank you to Brett Hawke as well for doing the interview. And I think he's doing such a great job covering Popovich. I certainly owe a lot to him in that he's doing this. But I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, and we're going to listen to some pieces of this interview. Um, full screen. And there's a really good piece of this right off the bat that I want to highlight.
Well, thank you. It's great to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going to scroll back just a little bit to when Hawk introduces his statement.
I love watching you swim, man. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you. It's great to hear that from someone like you.
Now, listen, this.
Just a simple statement here to kick off. I think, Hawk is paying him a compliment. And Popovich, I think a lot of people feel pressure in situations like this to be modest, essentially, and deflect from a very direct compliment than that. And instead, Popovich just goes with pure gratitude. He's, actually pays Hawk a compliment back, which has got to feel good to be able to do. And he accepts it. There's no deflection. There's no sort of statement of modesty. Oh yeah, I'm just a swimmer doing my best, whatever. Like, he does actually take the compliment in this situation. And I think that's a really important skill for people to see modeled, because very often we are uncomfortable Even though we all want recognition in life, this paradox is that so many of us, when we do get that recognition, we become uncomfortable with the emotions of that, even though they're probably positive emotions, or maybe it does trigger some sort of shame in us, because we're suffering from imposter syndrome or whatever. And so we seek to deflect that compliment instead of letting it land with weight. And it's such a simple thing, not a big thing, but I wanted to highlight it here. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question that Hawk asks.
Me, the fact that I was so close to such a high podium.
Okay, so Hawk is asking him about his reaction to getting very close to a medal at the Olympics and his learning experience from the Olympics.
I guess the Olympics taught me to stay calm during such an important meet. And I think that's something not a lot of, not swimmers, but athletes can accomplish, like staying calm and being well thought out all throughout. Because nerves can get to you, pressure can get to you, but if you just have a balance, just enough attention, um, just enough of being introverted, then I think you're just on the path of doing it great.
So, I think a lot of people listening to this probably heard me say how unhelpful the advice, to somebody who's freaking out is if you just tell them, hey, relax. But I think when you're talking about yourself, and that's what he's doing here, there's actually something really good here in that he is recognizing a strength within himself, and he's able to assess that honestly and give himself credit, that, yeah, I think it is probably like 1 in a billion to be 16 years old and be competing at the Olympics and actually have a chance to do something and then not be emotionally overwhelmed by the situation. So he's able to speak very specifically to his own strengths and give himself credit for that. And again, it is a natural inclination for many of us to be dismissive of our own strengths because they're that because we're sort of used to them, we can tend to normalize them and just like sort of erase them almost and say like, oh well, like that's just a baseline for who I am. He's actually recognizing that there's something very exceptional about himself, and there's nothing arrogant about that whatsoever. It's actually really, really valuable that he's able to do that in this situation. I'm going to get to a section later here where they talk about some of the 200 freestyle here at the World Championships, which Popovici won.
It was actually pretty simple. Usually we have it more complicated, but
So this is a strategy for the 200 free. I should do a better job setting up these before I start playing.
since we didn't expect extremely much, we just said, okay, I gotta win my heat. I think that will, because I think I was last heat, and I think that will sort of offer me an easy way onto the semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I felt great. I can't really say why. I do know for a fact that the atmosphere and the people that are in the stands, and when I know people are watching, simply makes me be a little bit faster.
So there's a sense that, of course, it can be really nerve wracking to compete in a swimming event where there's thousands of people watching in the stands, many more people watching from home, and but it's also on its face an incredibly positive experience, right? If you can take a step back from that and also get into that thinking part of your brain, which is I think one of the things that Popovici is showing really well that he can do here, and say like, isn't it wonderful that this thing that I'm good at, that so many people care and want to cheer for me and want me to do well, and are here watching and giving their time and moments of their life to this thing. I mean, it is really a powerful, positive emotional experience if you can wrap your mind around um, what is going on around you. And it sounds like Popovich did that really effectively, um, and that actually turned what could have been a nerve-wracking situation into a really positive situation for him and something that he could draw upon in this situation that he found himself in, and the way that he thought about what was going on actually made it an extremely positive emotional experience, and not an out of control positive emotional experience, because that could happen too, but just something that was actually helping him to do what he wanted to achieve better in that situation. Um, we got two more little pieces of this that I want to share. The other piece is, uh, in regards to Popovich is answering a question about what was going through his mind on the last 50 of the 200 as he was racing at the World Championships.
Hurt a lot. Like I was feeling very slow. I wasn't even swimming. Like I wasn't feeling the water. I was just swimming on like I was on a manual thing. Like my muscle was doing.
Okay, just an aside for every swimmer I have ever coached. Please listen to that first 10 seconds on repeat as many times as you possibly can. I think so many athletes have this experience when they're coming up young that they had a race that where they went extremely fast, they did extremely well, and it felt great. And so many athletes are then from that point on chasing that high, and they think that actually it affects them in the course of races, because they think that if it's hurting, if they're not feeling good while they're doing it, that it must mean that they're not doing well, right? This is a 17-year-old who's winning his first world championships, and he's admitting that, yeah, it hurt like hell and I didn't feel good doing it. Okay. So that's the adversity in terms of his mind that he was having to deal with as he pushes off for the last 50 of this race.
During the coordination, I wasn't feeling the water. My legs were burnt out. But I knew for a fact that I was because I could see I was a little bit in front, and I knew I had probably the best last 50 out of them, and at the same time being the best 100 freestyler out of that final. I had a lot of confidence in that one, and I just wanted to show off as much as possible and show off my skills, especially in the last 50. But what kicked in my mind, I suppose, was while I was swimming, I was simply telling to myself, and again, this was in English. I don't know why. I guess most of my thoughts.
Just another observation from having coached in Denmark. I knew a lot of coaches over there that if they wanted to give a real motivational speech before something, they would do it in English. And I think this is actually an underrated aspect that I've not heard anybody discuss about, but that English is the language of high performance in the world. Among all other things, people associate high performance in sports with the English language. And I think that's a compliment actually to Americans, that we have such a strong culture around athletic competition that, even a young Romanian is psyching himself up in the course of winning his first world championship in the water by thinking in English. So sorry, I'm going to go on.
Sorry, in English. This was I was just telling myself, like, every two strokes, like, this is the most important of my life so far. I have to do this, and I have to.
I love that statement. Not that I have to do this, but this is the most important thing I've done swimming wise so far. Right? It centers him in the moment. It speaks to his own values, what he cares about, what what he's been striving for, and it is a beautiful positive orientation for a moment like this versus where he started, which is I'm in pain, I don't feel good, and my legs are gone, right? you know and so he's finding another track to put that cognitive part of his brain in an adverse situation in that is motivating to him, but it's positively motivating, and it's lifting him up so that he can do what he needs to do on the end of this race. Okay, so the last little piece I want to highlight here is Popovici responding to a question about breaking the world records. And I just want to end here, of course, because he's just broken a world record. So now we get to revisit how he was thinking about it before he was a world record holder. And there's just a beautiful little snippet here that I want to play.
This strive for perfection. It's me and my coach never want to actually get to perfection because I think that's foolish.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Okay. The idea that you're moving closer to perfection, but an honesty to realize that perfection is not possible. So you don't crush yourself under the weight of expecting to be perfect every day. Let's go on.
We just want to keep moving and striving for perfection every day. We never want to be perfect. That's impossible. But if you continue and try being perfect every day, then you'll get to the best version of yourself, which is basically what every
get to the best version of yourself. So in response to a question about the possibility of breaking the world record, where is his focus? Is it on the result, on the specific time that he needs to achieve to do these things? No, it's on becoming the best version of himself. And if that results in him breaking the world record, I'm sure he's going to be happy about that. I'm sure that he does also want to break the world record, but the only thing that he can exert influence over is not how fast the world record is, how fast anybody else swims, how fast the conditions are in the race that he has. It's he can do things to become a better version of himself, and if he stays focused on that, then he'll get the result he deserves sooner or later. So I think this is a wonderful interview. I want to say thank you to Brett Hawke for doing this. You should listen to the whole interview and not my chopped up version of it. But I wanted to take a crack at it from a positive psychology vantage point and, share some of my thoughts as I was listening to this amazing young athlete coming up. And maybe you'll find some inspiration for your own thought processes around something that you're doing. If you want to learn more about positive psychology, you can reach out to me. There's a contact form on my website, christycoach.com. Social media accounts are coming soon, returning to activity. I'm still gathering some stuff for that, probably 3 or 4 weeks out. So, until then, best way to contact me. And thank you again also to Jersey Wahoos, my employer, who provided equipment for this podcast and some time in the office to be able to record stuff like this, because we think also it has a great educational value for athletes on our own team and parents and coaches as well. So thank you everybody for listening, and I'll see you guys again soon.